You know that moment when your startup's burning through cash, your team's burning out, and everything feels like it's falling apart? Well, what if I told you that centuries-old Sikh wisdom holds the key to weathering these modern storms?
And it's fascinating how these ancient principles are actually perfectly suited for today's volatile startup environment.
Today, we're exploring how Sikh concepts like Chardi Kala and Seva can transform the way we build and run disruptive tech companies. And I gotta say, this isn't your typical Silicon Valley playbook.
It's really not. And what's interesting is that Sikhism was actually born in times of great upheaval and change, not unlike today's tech landscape.
Let's start with Chardi Kala. I've heard this term, but what does it really mean for startup leaders?
This is crucial. See, people often mistake Chardi Kala for simple optimism, but it's actually much deeper than that.
How so?
Chardi Kala is about maintaining a rising spirit precisely because things are difficult, not in spite of them. It's about finding strength in the challenge itself.
That's fascinating. So it's almost like the pressure creates the diamond?
Exactly. And in startup terms, it means viewing each crisis not as a setback, but as an opportunity for growth and transformation.
You know what this reminds me of? The whole fail fast mentality in Silicon Valley, but with a much deeper spiritual foundation.
Yes, but there's an important distinction. The Sikh approach isn't about failing for failing's sake. It's about maintaining dignity and purpose through the failure.
Let's talk about another key concept, Seva. How does that translate to startup leadership?
Seva means selfless service. In a startup context, it's about leading not for personal gain or ego, but for the genuine benefit of your team and users.
That's pretty countercultural in today's founder hero worship environment.
And that's exactly why it's so powerful. When leaders embrace Seva, they create cultures of genuine care and purpose, not just performance metrics.
Can you give me a concrete example of how this plays out?
Think about layoffs, a painful reality in startups. A leader practicing Seva approaches this not just as a business decision, but as a sacred responsibility.
Right, so it's not just about the bottom line.
Exactly. They ensure dignity in the process, provide genuine support, and maintain transparency, all while holding the weight of the decision personally.
You mentioned something earlier about Sangat. Can you explain that concept?
Sangat refers to community or fellowship. In Sikhism, it's about coming together for spiritual growth. In startups, it's about creating genuine bonds beyond just professional relationships.
That's interesting because tech culture can be pretty individualistic.
Right, and that's often where things break down. Sangat teaches us that real innovation and resilience come from strong community bonds.
Let's talk about the Valley of Death, that crucial period where startups either make it or break it. How does Sikh wisdom help here?
This is where Naam Simran becomes crucial. It's the practice of divine remembrance, staying connected to something larger than yourself.
So it's like having an anchor in the storm?
Exactly. When everything's falling apart, Naam Simran helps leaders maintain clarity and purpose. It's not about escaping the challenge, but facing it with grace.
You know what's fascinating? How these ancient practices seem perfectly suited for modern stress management.
Because they address something timeless, the human need for meaning and purpose in the face of uncertainty.
Let's talk about diversity. It's a big topic in tech. How does Sikh wisdom approach this?
This connects to the concept of Ik Onkar, the recognition that the divine exists in all. It's not just about hitting diversity numbers.
How so?
It's about seeing diversity as a spiritual truth, that different perspectives and backgrounds actually make us stronger and more complete.
That's a much deeper take than most DEI initiatives.
Because it comes from a place of genuine reverence, not just compliance. When you truly see the divine in everyone, inclusion becomes natural.
Let's talk about balance, another huge challenge in startups. How does Sikh wisdom address this?
This connects to the concept of grihastha, the householder's path. It's about being fully engaged in the world while maintaining spiritual awareness.
So you don't have to choose between success and spirituality?
Not at all. The key is integration, bringing spiritual principles into every aspect of business leadership.
That's really different from the typical work-life balance conversation.
Because it's not about separation, it's about bringing your whole self to everything you do, including running a company.
Let's talk about failure, something every startup faces. How does Sikh wisdom help leaders deal with this?
This connects to the concept of hukam, divine will or order. It's about accepting outcomes while maintaining effort.
That sounds like a delicate balance.
It is. It's about giving your absolute best while remaining unattached to the results. This actually leads to better decision-making.
How does that work in practice?
When you're not driven by fear of failure, you make clearer, more ethical decisions. You're guided by purpose rather than panic.
That's powerful. Let's talk about scaling. How does Sikh wisdom guide growth?
This relates to Dharam, living in alignment with truth and purpose. Growth should never compromise your core values.
But isn't that hard when investors are pushing for rapid growth?
That's exactly when these principles become most crucial. They help you grow sustainably, not just rapidly.
You mentioned inner saboteurs earlier. Can you elaborate on that?
In Sikh philosophy, we talk about the Manmukh versus Gurmukh mindset, being led by ego versus being led by wisdom.
How does that play out in startup leadership?
When leaders operate from Manmukh, they make decisions from fear or ego. When they operate from Gurmukh, they act from wisdom and service.
That's fascinating. How can leaders cultivate more of that Gurmukh mindset?
Through regular practices like Naam Simran, meditation, or remembrance. It's about training the mind to stay anchored in higher wisdom.
So it's really about consistent practice.
Exactly. Just like building a company, spiritual growth requires daily commitment and practice.
As we wrap up, what's the biggest lesson startup leaders can take from Sikh wisdom?
That true leadership isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about maintaining grace and purpose through every storm.
And that's actually more powerful than just pushing through with brute force.
Absolutely. When you lead with spiritual principles, you create something more lasting than just another successful company.
You create a positive impact that ripples out beyond just business.
Exactly. And in today's world, that's what we really need. Leaders who can combine innovation with wisdom.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you for sharing these timeless principles with us.
Thank you. Remember, every storm is an opportunity to rise with grace. That's the essence of Chardi Kala.